And welcome back, everyone, to the 10th episode of the Sports Coverage Podcast. My name is Andrew, and I am alongside my co host, Dylan, for today. Vince is not going to be here this week and may not be here for the next couple of weeks, so we're going to have a couple different subs coming in throughout the next couple of weeks. So, first, as always, we're going to hop right in with NFL, and we're going to talk about Thursday Night Football. So, it was the Chiefs versus the Broncos, and the Chiefs walked away with a 19-8 Chiefs victory. So the question here is the Broncos looked pretty bad. Russell Wilson has not worked out how they've wanted him to. Do you think the Broncos are currently tanking for Caleb Williams, or do you think that that may be a plan in the future?
Well, I don't think they have to tank right now. Their season's not over. Their defense is very talented. And Russell Wilson, he's been amazing in his career on the Seahawks. And no one can count him out this early in the season. They're like 1-4, and they don't have the hardest division right now with the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs, none of them looking like powerhouses. So I don't think they should rule him out and start tanking it. I think that Russell Wilson can improve, and maybe if the next couple weeks he doesn't do it, maybe they start tanking for Caleb Williams. But he also came out and said that Caleb Williams said that he doesn't want to play for a bad team. So if the Broncos only get 2, 3, 4 wins on the season, who says that Caleb Williams is not going to stay for his senior year at USC? So don't really think that's the case yet.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting. And with Caleb Williams, he had a shaky game yesterday, which we're going to talk about later. But will Caleb Williams decide to, if he's been being pursued by a better team who might want to trade up? Do you think he'll stay for his senior year no matter what as it stands, or do you think he's looking to get drafted immediately after the season?
So I think that there's a no doubter, in my opinion, that he goes straight to the NFL. First, you're making more money because he's probably going to be either the first or second pick. He's going to make a really big rookie contract, and he doesn't have to take the risk of getting a injury in college that downgrades his stock for the NFL. I know you don't want to go to a bad team, but it's probably going to be the case if you do it this year or next year. It's not like any good team's not going to do good in a couple years. So I think he goes straight to the NFL and just uses his ability as a quarterback just to improve and get the team that he's on back to what he hopes his team can be like.
And if there is an NFL team willing to trade up that high for a pick for a spot to get Caleb Williams, who do you think that would be that would realistically need a quarterback going into next season?
Well, first off, I think it's hard for an NFL team to do that because the teams that can who want to trade up for him will have to do it so early on because these QBs, these prospects in the college have to make their decisions if they want to pursue the NFL and start training for that and getting to the combine early. The NFL trades don't happen for a little bit. So unless they want to make the move so early and just depend on Caleb Williams to change their future, I don't think a big team, big name team who's been doing good this year will want to do that and ruin their momentum going into the 2024 NFL season.
Right. So then it definitely is an unrealistic goal for Caleb Williams to get drafted onto a good team. So we'll see how that plays out throughout the rest of the season. But today we had another morning game from London, and the Ravens took on the Titans at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with the Ravens walking with a 24-16 victory. So at the end, there was a bit of an onside kick that immediately failed for the Titans. That did put them in a position to potentially win the game or tie the game. And I think that the Titans played pretty well. Again, with there's something going on with the referees in London. There's been a lot of flags called in every single one of these London games. So just any quick thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think they played really, really good defense against really, really good Ravens offense with Lamar playing very well, Mark Andrews being a really reliable tight end. Zay Flowers got his first touchdown of his career today. But I just don't think Ryan Tannehill is like the answer for the Titans. They have such a good running back in Derrick Henry. They just signed DeAndre Hopkins. I think that going into next week, they try with Malik Willis. He didn't really have much opportunity today because of the short amount of time he played. But some of the throws he was making, he kind of eased himself into the game. I think that going into next week, I do not know exactly who they're playing, but Ryan Tannehill seemed to go off with an injury, I think Malik Willis is going to be the starter, and I hope that the Titans can get back on track because when they are healthy, they are such a good team.
And a question about the Titans QB room. So Will Levis was supposed to be drafted very, very high in this year's draft, ended up going pretty late to the Titans, and is now technically the third string pick. So do you think he's going to have a chance to start it all this
Personally, I don't know how bad the Tannehill injury is. I think if he is healthy, he probably will be the starter. He's a veteran. He knows the Titans offense. He knows the receivers on that team, the running back, the coach. But who's here to say that Malik Willis is going to be good? So don't count out Will Levis kind of getting in the game in one of these days the next week. So I mean, Malik Willis still has to prove himself, but I don't think you got to count him out because he was a really, really good, accurate pocket passer in Kentucky. He was supposed to go high in the draft for a reason. He fell, but I think the Titans could utilize him in a big way and make a difference for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So Sunday night football tonight is Giants versus the Bills. Danny Dimes will not be playing after he suffered a neck injury last week against Miami, and it will be the return of Tyrod Taylor and Coach Dable to Buffalo. So there's been a lot of talk about Brian Dable's connection with Josh Allen. Tyrod Taylor had a good couple of years in Buffalo a couple of years ago, and there's some injury concern for the Bills against the Giants. The Giants have not been playing well at all this season so far, and their offense has been absolutely atrocious. But is there any chance the Giants can sneak something in here, or do you think it's going to be Bills all the way?
Oh man, I don't see a world where a Josh Allen led Bills team loses to this 2023 Giants team. They have been they in my opinion, they should be 0 and 5 right now. Only a great comeback against the Cardinals, but Cardinals are not good and they have just not proved themselves on offense. They got shut out by the Cowboys. They got like just manhandled against the Niners. The Bills have, I know the record doesn't show it, but they have been, in my opinion, the best offense in the NFL this year so far. And no one on the, only their two tight ends are questionable, but no one on the offense that stands out to me is injured. I don't think Tyrod Taylor and Brian Dable, even though they have a small connection, I don't think that's going to affect the score today. I think Bills come out with a lopsided victory.
I'm not going to comment on this one or make a prediction here. I think I'm always going to root for the Giants. I don't care what they're doing. I'll always have hope in them. But you're right. Bills definitely still look to be the better team. So moving from one New York team to the other on the topic of quarterbacks as well, Zach Wilson has been the starting quarterback for the Jets for the last couple of weeks. And my question for you is Zach Wilson actually improving over the last couple of weeks? He had a fairly good game last week. It looked like he's been getting better, but will this be kept up and will he eventually get to that point that he was drafted where they thought he was going to be this amazing quarterback?
All right, as a Jets fan, a big time Jets fan, I was actually at the game against the Chiefs that Sunday night. That was, in my opinion, his breakout game, his best game ever played as a Jet. Best game by far. I think he just showed that he can make the reads, he can make the throws that everyone thought he couldn't. It's just he needs to ease into the game. He needs to go faster. He just puts his mind on things too much. And also, it just didn't help that two of his star offensive linemen are off the season. And then he's just today during the game, another offensive lineman's out. His team's banged up, and it's hard to just get for like a third-year quarterback who hasn't played much. All these expectations for Aaron Rodgers just to show up, to come in and just try to make this Jets team to what their expectations were. I think he's been improving. The Broncos game was really good for him, and we'll see how he does today. But Zach Wilson, he he hasn't done terrible. I think Trevor Lawrence is still way better than him, but he has made improvements, and I think he can get to that level where people think he was supposed to be.
And some good news for you about Aaron Rodgers. There's a video that came out today of him already throwing after suffering a torn Achilles a couple weeks ago. And Jets fans have been very adamant about the fact that he'll be out or he'll be back by the end of the season. So
Hmm.
that's definitely promising for you guys. But if Zach Wilson continues to improve, we'll see what happens towards the end of the season. So
Don't know.
another big injury that happened was Justin Jefferson will be out for 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury, which he suffered in the fourth quarter of the Vikings' 21-13 victory over the Panthers. So he is what many say the best wide receiver in the league. He is arguably the best offensive player in the league. And this is a huge hit to the Vikings, especially on the topic of Kirk Cousins potentially getting traded in the next couple weeks, but they've kind of started to shut that down over the last couple days. So the Vikings have looked a little shaky starting the season, and especially now without their star player, how do you think they're going to play over the next couple weeks?
Well, it's a start today, getting the win over the Bears. I think just getting one win at a time will get them to the place they want to be. This could be a something just gets them on the right track. I don't think they are a team that's going to make the playoffs. They don't have like a stellar defense by any means. Their quarterback is good, but without Dalvin Cook anymore, and now without Justin Jefferson, I don't see this team making a real push for the playoffs. But I don't really see Kirk Cousins on a different team. I think that they need to win 3 out of the next 5 games they play, and hopefully Justin Jefferson will come back from those 4 to 6 weeks that he's supposed to be out for. And if they can get a couple wins throughout this time, who's to say that Justin Jefferson won't come back healthy and ready to make a difference on this team? I think they just have to keep chopping away at win by win, game by game, and I think Kirk Cousins is a good enough quarterback to get them there, and I don't think trading him away will be the smartest decision in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they have announced that they're not really looking to trade him as of right now, unless, of course, they get a ridiculously good offer. So,
Yeah.
talking about Zach Wilson again, do you think that the Jets might try to get a deal in for him? Or do you think they're just going to stick with Zach?
Robert Sala has showed a lot of like passion to play Zach Wilson to improve him over practice, and I see the improvement as I said earlier. As a Jets fan, I know this. I know people might not agree with me. I don't want Zach Wilson to be benched. I don't want them to trade for someone. Our team on paper before the season started was supposed to be top 5, top 7 in the league, contenders for the Super Bowl. And just because Aaron Rodgers went down does not mean this defense isn't as good as it was. Doesn't mean our options like Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, Dalvin Cook, and Brees Hall doesn't mean they're not the same. I don't think that if we trade all some pieces away, that it'll improve our team at all. I think it'll just improve our team for a couple games this year. But if Aaron Rodgers comes back next year healthy, I think we will have a good team if we don't make any crazy trades this year. So stick with Zach
Yeah.
Wilson. Don't go for Kirk.
All right. Yeah. And I agree with Kirk. I think it's for his best option to be staying with the Vikings. He's been there for a good amount of time now. He's gotten used to those guys, and I think he's able to play without Justin Jefferson. He's got targets KJ Osborne, newly drafted Jordan Addison. I think those guys are going to be able to keep propelling them forward. So another injury that literally just happened as of recording is Jimmy Garoppolo exited his game today with a back injury and is doubtful to return. A couple weeks ago, he was on concussion protocol and came back last week, and now he is potentially hurt again. So the Raiders have looked very interesting so far, and I haven't really seen him utilizing Devontae either. So what do you think about the Raiders, just real quick?
So I actually did not know about that. I knew he was playing today, but rookie Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue. As a Rutgers fan here, watched him a lot, but I don't. He played the Chargers really well last week. A Chargers team that has Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams obviously after the season, Austin Eckler, a high-powered offense, a decent defense. I think he played them really well. Lost unfortunately by 1 score. I don't think this means like the Raiders are not going to win this game tonight. I think the Patriots are not good at all, so I think they do come out with a win. I don't understand why Davante Adams is not getting in more targets, catches. He, in my opinion, is a top 3 receiver in this league behind Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson. And I know people put up like debates for
Diggs.
Jamar
Diggs.
Chase, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
I think Davante Adams, when he has a quarterback like what Aaron Rodgers was, he was the best receiver in the league by far. So I don't know why they're not getting him in more of the game, but maybe as a rookie, Aiden O'Connell will have to use their best targets, has to a little safety valve. So maybe that'll be a good sign for the Raiders as they try to pull off a victory today against the Patriots and pull even at 3-3.
Yeah. So another thing that happened today is the Browns have defeated the argued number one team in the NFC, the 49ers, with a 19-17 thrilling victory. I'm just going to let you speak about this one because from what you've said so far after that game, you've been very excited and kind of confused about what happened there. So, just any thoughts on that?
Watching the game at my uncle's house, we were very surprised when we turned the game on and it was 17-16. And we watched the end of the game. I think the refs not trying. I'm not a 49ers fan, not a Browns fan. As I know I'm a Jets fan. The refs sold that game for the 49ers. Two bad defensive calls on the final drive for the Browns that got them to eventually hit that game-winning field goal that because the 49ers missed one. And you watch the tape, you watch the highlights on them. There is no way an NFL referee will call that. I think that it shouldn't be looked into. It's not that deep, serious, but like for such an important game for both teams that you can't call these like picky calls on defenders when they do that all the time in the NFL. Like both teams are going after both offense and like receivers and corners are going after each other. These little calls shouldn't like put the game on ice for the Browns. And then Jake Moody missing a 41-yarder. He missed a 50-yarder that day. He's been really, really solid this entire year. Unlucky day for the 49ers. I think they'll bounce back and win it the next week, but it's not looking good for Jake Moody right now because he is a rookie. Don't want to lose your job so early.
Yeah, I agree with that. So moving on to more football, but not professional this time, but kind of now with NIL and stuff like that. But college football. So the largest comeback in school history for Stanford, and they have upset Colorado in 2 OT after hitting the game-winning field goal, and it was 49-46 in favor of Stanford. So Colorado, after being the most hyped team in the country and starting off pretty strong, have absolutely crumbled and fell apart. Been unranked now, I think, for 2 weeks, and they are just downward spiraling. So you're also a big college football fan, and you kind of talked about this earlier in the year when they were very, very strong and looked very promising. But now, how do you look at Colorado after this loss?
Oh man, I turned the game off when it was 29-0. I thought this game was over. Stanford coming into this game 1-4, going to Colorado in an environment where celebrities, fans, they're all so hyped up for Deion Sanders and Shador Sanders and this team. Just to come out, Stanford, really, really good for them to just block out the noise, come back from this team, and just prove Colorado wrong, prove all the haters wrong. I don't think that this is Shador Sanders' fault at all. It's the Colorado defense week out. It's just they give up too many points, and you can't expect an offense to consistently score 40 plus, which they have been doing. But like, man, they need to figure something out here if they want to make a bowl game because this Pac-12 is not an easy conference. If you look at the rest of their schedule, they're playing I think 4 ranked teams in out of the next like 6 whatever they play. It's not an easy schedule. These are games they have to win, but big time win for Stanford. Good for their program, but yeah, not good for Deion Sanders.
Yeah, and speaking of rankings and stuff, the new AP poll just came out, and Air Force is ranked for the first time since 2019 as they are undefeated. Iowa, Tulane, and Missouri all get back in the top 25 after their big wins over the weekend. Any thoughts on the new AP poll?
Well, good for Air Force. Don't know much about them. I know they have pulled out many good wins. I mean, they are 6-0. They have Army next week, and I think for the Army Air Force game, that's going to be a fun game to watch. Always when these two teams play, always a classic. Army Navy, Army Air Force. Love to watch those games. But we have Iowa, who I know it was a slugfest, 15-6 against Wisconsin, but that's what Iowa football
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Straight defense, no offense. But if they're gonna hold a Wisconsin Badger team with a pretty good offense to 6 points, no touchdowns. I mean, they deserve that ranking.
Yeah.
Um, Tulane,
Tulane, yeah. They've just looked
they are.
consistent over the past couple weeks. I've just because they've played a lot of like the Friday night and Thursday night games, so I've just been kind of seeing what they've been doing. They look pretty good from the little amount uh of their games I've watched.
So I know they are 5-1. That one loss was to number 20 at the time, Ole Miss. They didn't get. I know they lost by 17, but the game was very close. Came down to a final possession that Tulane did not get the fourth down on. Ole Miss has now turned into a really good team. Only loss coming from Alabama, and they pull out wins against LSU and Tulane now. But I think that Tulane can get themselves back on track from like last year when they played USC in the Cotton Bowl. They're always a good team, so glad to see them back in the AP poll. And then you also have Missouri, who had a high scoring, just back and forth game against LSU the week before this week, and they were kicked out of the AP poll, which I disagreed on because I think that Missouri was a really good team and they showed it just completely just like holding Kentucky to 21 points. Their offenses showed that they are really good. Just knocking off number 24 Kentucky and getting themselves back in this poll. Good for them.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to talk about our game of the week now, or should I say games of the week, because Dylan has three. But I'll go first just to get mine out of the way. I went with the obvious option at the time, number 8, Oregon versus at the time, number 7, Washington. That was a fun game to watch, good rivalry up there. And I don't know, I just liked the energy. I liked watching the game even before the game started. You could see what was going on with game day and stuff. And it was a good game. I liked it. So now I'm gonna let you talk about your 3 games. So
Actually, I just want to add one thing on from your game. It was crazy. I was watching game day that morning, and what I saw, game day starts around 10, I think, 10 Eastern time.
yeah,
There are fans out there, a ton of fans out there at 7 a.m. Pacific time, just waiting for this game to start, getting so hyped up for their team. And I'm glad to see them pull out with the win.
and
So,
there's the guy who won
yeah,
the Pac
Pat McAfee.
McAfee thing. He said he was there for like 12 hours or something.
They probably camping out in tents like the Duke
Yeah.
North Carolina basketball tradition.
I mean,
I
it's cool to see fans like that. That's awesome.
was watching the replay on it. I didn't see the actual kick live. I saw in the
Yeah.
video. He missed the first one for 60K, but he was so close and he was the first one this entire year that even came close. All the students, every one student per game day team gets to do one. No one's came close. This guy just wide left. Pat McAfee gave him another chance for 30K, knocked it right down the middle, and it
Yeah.
felt good for him
That
because
yeah, that was
you
really
know
cool.
those
But anyway,
students.
back to the games. Yeah.
So I had my first game of the week, USC versus Notre Dame. I don't think it was one of the best games, but it just shows Notre Dame didn't give up from their losses to Louisville, and I think that they really showed that they still are a good team. Sam Hartman had really good game yesterday. Me personally, I think it's his best game ever as a Notre Dame, Firing Irish. Um, I don't USC just they got their defense is just not holding up. It's been the case for most games this week, and they just can't get it going. And Caleb Williams with 3 picks, but you can't expect him to be perfect every single week. Their defense cannot give up 40 plus points every game. So, and they're down to number 18 in the rankings. I think that's well deserved. I don't think they're a good team, not a team that can make the playoffs, in my opinion. So glad to see Notre Dame pulling up with a win. So the next 2 games are 2 games that are kind of like under the radar. Not many people are like looking at them, but I found them very interesting. The first Thursday night game, West Virginia versus Houston. West Virginia, 5-1 going into this. One of their best seasons yet. Only loss being to Penn State. They got a touchdown with 10 seconds to go, but then Houston got a game-winning Hail Mary to win it,
Yeah,
which is kind of
game
crazy.
was just I don't even know because I watched like the last 10 minutes like of just the highlights, and just the last 10 minutes was absolutely insane. So that's really cool.
And
And your
then
last one, yeah,
my team, Rutgers, they were down 24-6 with 14 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Came back, won at 27-24. I'm super excited for this team. They're 5-2, their best start since 2014. Next week against Indiana, trying to make a bowl game. So let's see how that plays out for them.
Yeah, that would be fun. So, we promised last week we would talk a little bit about the NHL as the season has kicked off. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the most hyped player going into this season and the number one pick in the draft this year. Connor Bedard has already gotten his first NHL goal and assist out of the way, coming in his first and second games with the Blackhawks. The number one pick has looked strong so far, but we will continue to monitor him throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at his age. I don't know much about hockey, but 18 years old and he's just a beast. I mean, I think like I know rookie of the year is like an early it's way too early to really debate that, but like I mean, come on, he's looking insane so far. So we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the season. But Connor Bedard, 18-year-old out of Canada, I mean, he seems good. So
And the one thing that I and other fans have noticed watching the first couple Blackhawks games is the um he's just looked a little scared going in for some of the hits and stuff, and it's a big transition from the NHL to the other leagues he's played in. So I think he just needs to get more physical. The physicality is different in the NHL, so I think if he just gets in it more, and I think he'll be even better. But he's, don't get me wrong, looked amazing so far. So the MLB, the postseason is in full swing, and there's a ton of debate about changing the divisional series amount of games and how the playoffs are broken because of what happened. So, three of the four teams that have moved on to the championship series were the underdogs. So, we're going to talk about the ALCS and the NLCS in a bit of detail. Starting with the ALCS, it's the battle for Texas. The Houston Astros will take on the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers may be getting Ace Max Scherzer back from the IL, but an official move has not been made yet, while the Astros are looking to repeat after winning the World Series in 2022.
as a Yankee fan, don't like the Astros at all. But it's just year in and year out. I mean, this was a considered a bad season for the Astros, and they still just managed to push through in the playoffs and make it here. But personally, I have the Rangers here in this playoff series. They have not lost a game all playoffs without their star pitcher Max Scherzer. I think that if they just play as good as they've been playing, that there's no shot that they can lose. But again, the Astros, they feed in the playoffs, so we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rangers here and just talking about their pitching staff a little more. Their top three starting pitchers are Max Scherzer, Nathan Evaldi, and Jordan Montgomery. I think I might be missing someone there, but that Evaldi has always been amazing in his career, and he's been even better this year. Jordan Montgomery, I remember, was a little shaky with the Yankees. Then I think he went to the Cardinals, and now he ended up with the Rangers. And he has looked absolutely fantastic this postseason. And I'm excited to see what happens when Max Scherzer comes back, because you always know he performs well in the postseason. The NLCS, it's the young versus, I guess, the expensive, I guess we could call it. But
Yeah.
the young Diamondbacks, led by NL Rookie of the Year favorite Corbin Carroll, will get a chance at the NL title defending Phillies, who are looking for their revenge. Nick Castellanos got hot at the end of the Braves series, hitting 2 home runs in 2 straight games for the first time in postseason history. As always, though, Bryce Harper led the team to victory. And speaking of home runs, the Phillies tied the record for most home runs in a postseason game at 6 in their game against the Braves, and the Diamondbacks set the postseason record for most in one inning at 4. The the two series that the Phillies and Diamondbacks had before this were just absolutely insane. And the Phillies, beat the favorites for the World Series. The Diamondbacks have come out of nowhere. Before the season, everyone said they're going to be hot this year with Corbin Carroll and all these young speedsters. So I'm going to go with the Phillies here, but I think the Diamondbacks are going to put up a good fight. What about you?
Want to touch on one thing. Didn't know much about him, but Gabriel Moreno, he winning the
Oh, yeah.
NLDS. I mean, first season on the Diamondbacks. I mean, as a catcher, good for him. I mean, he's 23 years old, young. I mean, to put him alongside Corbin Carroll and the stacked young team. Diamondbacks are going to be good this year, but I have to agree. Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, the good pitching core. I don't see the Phillies losing this. I think they're going to repeat, go back to the World Series, and maybe even get a rematch against the Astros. Who knows?
Yeah, and we'll talk more about this next week as the championship series may or may not come to a close depending on what happens. I think both of these are going to be quite competitive or not. I don't know. It's baseball. Anything can happen. So we're going to talk about a new league today, just real quick. Not really much conversation about this, but just to give you an update on what's going on in the Prem, the Premier League over in England. So the title favorites, Man City, have been handed 2 straight losses in the Prem, moving down to 3 on the table, while the Tottenham Hotspurs and Arsenal have taken the top spot with 6 wins and 2 draws each. Liverpool, who have had their struggles as of late, dropping a game to Tottenham and then drawing with Brighton, have the number 4 spot on the table. At the bottom and in danger of relegation are currently Burnley, which YouTube superstars Dude Perfect bought a stake in earlier this year, AFC Bournemouth, and Sheffield United. And just a lot, usually teams that are newly promoted, unless absolutely crazy, are usually down in that relegation fight. But there is some good news for a newly promoted team, Luton Town, who has become a fan favorite, and they have earned their first Premier League win this season against Everton with a 2-1 victory. So that's what's going on in the Prem. If you have any quick comments, Dylan, just if you want to say anything.
Not much. Just saw some highlights on the international friendly on U.S. versus Germany. I know it doesn't count for anything. U.S. doesn't have to be affected by this. Already qualified for the World Cup as because they're hosting it. But 3-1 losing to Germany. Scored the first goal with Pulisic, but otherwise they need to get back on track because they did not look good a couple days ago.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more soccer or football or whatever you want to call it in the next upcoming episodes. But we are going to do our fast fact for this week. As always, every week we have a fast fact at the end of our episodes, and we like to highlight sometimes different sports that we don't usually talk about in our actual episodes. So, with one more win, the Las Vegas Aces can win back to back WNBA championships as they take on the New York Liberty. The Aces won the 2022 title and are now close to winning this year's. So, the game is actually about to start as of recording, which could potentially be the Las Vegas Aces clincher. Um, Personally, I've seen that the New York Liberty, living in the tri-state area, I've been seeing that they've been doing really well. I think I've watched like parts of a couple games, but I like what I've seen so far this season for the New York Liberty, but I remember last year Las Vegas Aces were an extremely strong team. Dylan, you're into basketball. If you have any insight about what's going on here.
I mean, not a huge, not a, like haven't watched many WNBA games this year, but hope New York Liberty can pull out the win. I know that there's 2 studs on this team, Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart, and don't count them out yet. I mean, one of them, the MVP winners, like they will be able to put away the Las Vegas Aces. They just put their minds to it and get a couple wins here. But that's all I
Yeah,
have.
yeah. I'm excited to see what happens with that game today because I think it's going to be definitely very competitive. So thank you so much, Dylan, for being here. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, no problem. Um, so that has been episode 10 of the Sports Coverage Podcast. As always, subscribe, check out the Instagram where we have announcements whenever we post. Like the stuff over there. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.